Today we're going to talk about sharpening knives. What is the most important thing to remember about sharpening knives? What are we trying to accomplish when we're sharpening knives? What's actually happening? We're going to go over that. I'm going to show you how I've gotten some knives sharpened, how it's worked out for me, and the mistakes I've made in the process of learning how to do this right. I did a lot of research and I decided to go with diamond stones. I didn't want to go with whetstones because as you use them, they can start to wallow out, and you might still need to buy a diamond stone even then just to flatten them. Plus, you got to soak them in water for a period of time, and they're just a hot mess to use. When it comes to sandpaper goes bad. So if I buy sandpaper once, spend $30 on that, I might want to have to do it again eventually. With diamond stones, it's a one and done purchase. I buy a set of stones, and I'm good for all the sharpening I'll be doing probably over the course of my lifetime, for at least for the knives I have. So it seemed like a good purchase to me. And I bought a set of DMT diamond stones from Sharpening Supplies, my own money spent. So when it comes to sharpening knives, there are so many mistakes that I have made. I have thought that I have ruined knives already several times over, and I didn't. I didn't ruin them. I just made them dull for a time until I figured out how to make them sharp again. That is the kicker there. You can't really mess up a knife too badly if you're not trying to mess up a knife. If you're trying to fix a knife, it's not going to be easy to jack a knife up irreparably. If you're trying to fix a knife, you can usually work your way through this. I wouldn't start with my favorite knife. I'd start with a knife that isn't my favorite. If it's the only knife you've got, that's the knife you're starting with. You can do this. I believe in you. What I want to go over first is, what is a burr? What is the apex of the blade? Let's talk about the nomenclature, and we're going to flip the camera around. We're going to look at the table here so I can write things down, show you kind of a visualization of what we're looking for, of what we're hoping to see happen, and then we'll go over that from there, and we'll go through the whole thing. When we're talking about a blade, the back of the blade here, that's the spine of the blade, and the tip of it, the cutting edge, that's what we call the apex. Now, in this diagram I'm going to draw, we're viewing the blade from this point here, right? From the tip looking down the apex of the blade, okay? So when I draw this out, this is what a blade looks like when it's dull with this rounded over top edge. Now, a sharp blade is going to look very similar, except it's going to have a nice point at the top. That sharp edge is what we're looking to develop, especially when we have a dull blade that started to be rounded over. And when you're stropping, you can round over a blade. When you're carving, you can wind up rounding over a blade, or you get a chip in the blade. Either way, you're going to need to re-grind or reshape the profile of the blade to match this, to get the apex back to that sharp point that we see here. By doing that, you can strop the blade, and you will strop metal on one side till you eventually wear this off. Now here's the issue. You need to remove enough material to get a new point in the blade. You're going to be taking this section out. That's what's going to be happening to be able to reform a point. Now, there's very minimal amount of metal being moved here. And I'm overzealous with my drawing. It doesn't have to go that far back. You can get it just over here and then a little bit over there, and then you wind up creating that apex again. But while you're doing this, it is not as simple as just dropping a blade sometimes. Sometimes you need to go a bit further. So let's again say you got that rounded over edge, and you're looking to create the apex. As you're sharpening, you're going to start sharpening on one side. And the misnomer we have often is that we think metal is immovable and not malleable. It's a hard metal object, right? Well, metal is not as malleable as one might think. It's not as immovable. It is malleable, and it can be moved and shaped, which is what blacksmiths do when they create knives. When you start to move metal on a stone or on a strop, you're going to start shaving it off on one side. And as you do that, a burr will start to form on this edge. The metal that's been pushed off will start to curl off on one side. Now, if I rub my finger along this side, right through here, it's going to be hard to feel the burr. But if I run it on the opposite side, I'm going to feel that little piece of metal hanging off right there. It'll be easy to feel that burr. So when I'm talking about feeling the burr, to see if you feel a burr, This is what I'm looking for. You should be able to run your finger on the opposite side of the blade and feel that little piece of metal there. Once you get that little piece of metal, we need to get that piece of metal from the other side as well. So we'll start sharpening on this side. And as we do that, this piece of burr will be pushed over in this direction here. And so it'll no longer be in this direction. It'll be pushed over this way here. When we get that to occur, that's when our burr is perfect and our apex is right on point for where we need to be. Just like when you're breaking off the tab of a can of Coke or Pepsi, you work a piece of metal back and forth to break it off, right? The same thing's going to happen on this. We're going to sharpen on coarse until we form a burr on both sides. And then we're going to work that burr back and forth by sharpening this side so that the burr goes this way, sharpening this side so that the burr goes that way, and then going down a step to coarse, fine, extra fine, as we keep working that burr back and forth until we break it off. You do not move further or past one point. So if you're working on coarse, you do not move to fine or extra fine until you're sharp enough to cut. When you're sharp enough to cut, you've got a burr, because that's when that apex is fully formed. That apex is at a point, and that's when that burr can form off the top of it. When you're still rounded over, people try to move past too fast. That's when they have an issue, right? So the biggest issue I had as a new knife sharpener was that I tried to start on the fine or extra fine, thinking I didn't need to do that much work. But when I have a good rounded over edge, I'm going to do a lot of work to remove enough material to create a new apex. And that fine grit, that might take me 40 minutes of pushing that knife across that. And when you're trying to maintain a very proper angle on the knife, that gets very difficult to maintain that angle over that period of time while using a fine grit. This is why I suggest you use a coarse grit first, because you're going to remove the same amount of metal no matter what you do to fix a knife. You're going to have to remove the same amount of metal no matter what you do to sharpen the knife. So start with the coarse grit and get to that apex, get to that burr quicker, and then you'll have to hold that edge, that angle on your grind far less. You have to hold it for far less time, and that will enable you to maintain the proper angle and get to the next step far more quickly. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking to do. Let's move on to the next step. The knife I'm going to work with today is this OCC Tools knife that I've had for quite some time. I have been using it and using it and using it. It's got a nice long, 2.5-inch blade? Is that what this is? Let me take a look here. It is 2 1/4 inch blade, which is quite a large blade. It's one of the longer blades that I have, and it works great. And it's really a fantastic knife. Has been a fantastic knife since the beginning. The problem is I have used it so much that it has gotten to the point that I can't get it sharp on a strop alone, and it is just a bit dull. I know what needs to happen, and I've waited on this one, using it and getting it to the point where I really need to just take it to a stone, so I can do that for this video. And here's a little show and tell, right? I've got the paper, and normally you can just cut paper with a good knife. This one's not doing that. And to show you the difference, right? This knife by Beckwith Forge that I have, this is a great knife, and it is super sharp. I can cut with it so easy. It's a flimsy paper, easy to do. That's what a knife should be doing for a wood carving knife, right? Even on this one, same thing. But this knife is just tearing when I can get it in there. You can see that's just tearing versus nice clean cuts. Tearing. So we're going to sharpen this knife up and get it working order again. It's been a while since I got these stones, so they do look rather used right now. I'm going to be starting on the extra coarse side of our stones. A lot of people have differing opinions when it comes to diamond stones on whether or not you should use water to remove the swarf. First off, what is swarf? Swarf is the excess materials that are going to be generated as you sharpen your knife on the stone. And I definitely am in the category of wanting to have it on there. I find that if you don't have a little water on there, that swarf will start to build up and you won't be sharpening as evenly as you work your knife across the stone. So I find that it is much more beneficial to have the water on here while you're sharpening back and forth to eliminate that issue. And you don't need much. I'm going to use this eyedropper here, and I'm going to put water on here in a few spots like so, and then just smooth it out a little bit, and that should be all we need. We want to ensure that we keep our knife firmly on the stone the entire time as we're sharpening. That apex of the knife needs to rest completely down, and you're going to eliminate that shadow that you see along the bottom edge of the blade. That shadow has to disappear. Once that shadow disappears, you have the apex fully and firmly planted on the stone. It does not take many passes, and so we're going to go back and forth, and this is going to generate swarf that you'll begin to see on the knife, or on the stone, I should say. I am holding the blade firmly in place, but I am not putting a lot of pressure on the blade. I'm letting the stone do the work here. Absolutely most important thing to remember is to keep proper form. Keep that apex and the flat side of the blade completely flat on here, and maintain your form true as you sharpen your knife. Now, we can look at this blade and you can see marks from the stone as we've done this. I don't feel a good burr yet, so we're going to keep going, but you can see that we're going all the way to the edge. One trick you can use to see how well you're doing is a black magic marker trick. We can take this black magic marker and draw along the edge of our blade. Works much easier, much better if the blade's dry. So let me dry this blade off. Okay, we got a dry blade. Now we're going to take this black magic marker and we're going to color this blade here, just along that edge. And you'll know whether or not you're removing material in the right spots, or aren't evenly, I should say, as long as that black mark gets removed. You'll know you have removed material in an even fashion. Now I'm angling this knife so that I can get the whole blade on the stone at once. I am not moving this with my wrists. I'm moving this with my elbows firmly in place, locked, and my shoulders locked, and I move my whole torso back and forth. That helps me maintain my angle and maintain a consistent grind. As I work on maintaining this angle, I'm going slow. I'm not going fast, and I'm not getting in a hurry. When I feel like I can maintain this angle, I'm going to start to speed up a little bit and do it a little bit more quickly while keeping this angle proper. You got to maintain the angle. You got to maintain your proper technique. As you can see, we have eliminated all of the black magic marker. I can feel a burr along most of this. I wonder if I can zoom in and get that burr captured. Let's turn the brightness up here. You see that burr? Get that swarf off. Let's get in closer. It's not much. But you see just a little bit of
metal moving along the apex of the blade and my finger. I don't have a better camera, so I can't get this in closer than that. Maybe I can get a little bit closer, can I? That's it. You just barely see that burr. But that's the point where we switch it up and we start going on the other side of our blade. So we've gotten that side pretty good. Now we're going to work the other side on the coarse side of the stone until we get that burr in the other direction. Feel the burr again. Feel the burr, and you can see all the material that we've taken off on my finger there. But I can feel that burr on either side. So let's go ahead and swap up now to the coarse stone, which is the other side of that stone. I'll get a little water for our swarf, and we're not going to go nearly as far. We had a burr, and we're just going to work that burr now back and forth on down the grits as we go. And get my knife right there, getting the apex flattened down, locking my elbows in place, and then I move forward. The other direction, locking my elbows in place once I get that apex pushed down. It's definitely sharp, but I need to keep going to a smaller grit. And we're going to go with extra fine. That was coarse, and we're going to skip the fine, go right up to extra fine, because we're sharp enough now that I don't need to worry about the fine side. We're just going to be polishing it up. And I believe you'll be pretty impressed once you get that done. So, like I said, you don't need a lot of water, just enough to coat the top of this. And then this is polishing.
Again, the goal is maintain your angle, consistent pressure, but not too much pressure. You're mostly just holding that flat apex along the stone and keeping your elbows locked, maintaining your right angle. They actually make vices for these stones that I just haven't acquired yet, but I'm going to be getting one. As you can see, the stone's starting to move on me a little bit, but I'm still maintaining that angle pretty well, so I'm not worried about it too much.
Okay, with the burr we have on there right now, it's a tiny burr along the entire length. Let's see if I can zoom in there. Okay, now this is the last bit of the burr. It's on fine, and it's just barely there. You can kind of barely see it, right, like so. Now I'm going to take it to the strop, and I'm just going to strop it back and forth to eliminate that burr as best I can. I am just going to charge this drop as best I can with some white compound. It had green on it before, and this is a Helvy white I'm putting on there right now. I have cleaned the strop thoroughly after the green, but it still has a green coloring to it. Now, with this, we're just going to be stropping like we normally would and working that burr off a little bit at a time.
I spent about 5 minutes stropping this knife back and forth, both sides, just a regular stropping session. Just exactly like I would strop any other knife, the same way, going back and forth. And you can see as I take this 5-minute period and speed it up, the black start to form on the strop in various spots. It just takes a little time and you'll get that knife back up to cutting condition.
Okay, so what we have in the end is a knife that will cut paper just as well as you might want it to. So in the beginning, this knife would do nothing even remotely close to this. All right? I mean, I could just shave off little thin slivers, just barely hitting it. And it's just taking them off. Right? I'm making confetti. That's what I'm making. So, start on course. Don't try to skimp. Definitely start on course. That's the moral of the story.
And that's all I've got for you today, folks. I really appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't before, and then head over to Instagram, give me a follow over there. If you've got the time and you will help support the channel, you can head over to Etsy and buy some stickers. I've got several stickers available. This is my carving sticker. Wood Carvings by Johnny. Do you even carve, bro? I make wood chips, which is a fan favorite. Strop Yet, probably the most popular one. But don't do that if you don't want to. I was trying to save it for a new camera, and I have the camera. That's what we're filming on today. So be patient with me while I try to figure out how to get it working properly, whether or not my colors are right, and all this other fancy stuff that I haven't had to deal with before. I'm learning how to do this, and we're going to see how it goes. Other than that, watch one of the other videos that are popping up on the screen here. These are all great videos. Like this one right here, that's great. That's fantastic. This one over here, you could also use that. That's probably good for you. You want to see this. I don't know what it is, but that's definitely the one that you want to see. Take it easy, folks. Bye.